Good morning. My name is Retabile. I'm a psychologist. I make videos about mental health, drawing from my inspiration such as my faith, my love for films, and other aspects of popular culture. Good day to everyone who's watching this in the future. Right now, it's raining. So if you're out there in the future and you happen to be driving in the rain, please be careful. As Kanye West says, just drive slow. So this is another edition of Morning Thoughts. What thoughts do I have for myself, for you, for us today? Well, I think I could paraphrase what it is that I want to discuss with a couple of words. I would describe it as mind your surroundings. Mind your surroundings. Please forgive me. I'm driving a 2006 Toyota Yaris. It's roadworthy, but it's loud. So I'm going to try to speak so that you can hear me. Okay, mind your surroundings. What is this about? Firstly, that sentence, that phrase is not mine. I didn't make it up. It actually comes from Christopher Nolan's film Batman Begins. If you've watched that film, you would remember this phrase as being the words that Ra's al Ghul tells Bruce Wayne when he's training him. And he teaches him to mind his surroundings. In that scene, Bruce and Ra's al Ghul are busy training, sword fighting on the ice. And Bruce manages to get an advantageous position over Ra's al Ghul. So he looks like he won the fight. But then Ra's al Ghul breaks the ice beneath Bruce, and Bruce falls through the ice. And the lesson that Ra's al Ghul told him during that fight was to mind your surroundings. You have to mind your surroundings. You have to be careful. You have to know what kind of situation that you're in, what kind of context that you're in. And it's important because if you don't mind your surroundings, you'll find yourself making decisions, making choices that look like they're healthy choices, that look like it's what it is that you should do, is the wise or smart thing to do. But if you don't mind your surroundings, you can find yourself falling into a trap because you didn't try to account for all, ideally, or at best, as many of the circumstances and the contexts of the situation that you're in. It's important to mind your surroundings. So how does this apply from a mental health perspective? What are the mental health implications of this? Well, in my work so far, as a psychologist, in my work with the clients that I've spoken to, of course, I've had many different kinds of clients approaching, asking for help, wanting to discuss all kinds of challenges that they are experiencing. And the reason why this idea of the value of minding your surroundings is very important is because of a common pattern that I've seen among the clients, among the people that I've worked with, talked with. And this is not just in my professional life, in my personal life, in my life myself. The importance of minding your surroundings. And that is, one of the most valuable first steps that a client, that a person needs to take when they are trying to go through a difficult time in their life, when they're faced with a challenge, even the most terrible circumstances in life, is I find that the first step that a person needs to take that is so valuable is to actually realize and accept that the situation that they are in really is happening. Because here's the thing, when people enter a difficult time, when they enter even a tragedy in their life, the first instinct that human beings have is to deny it, is to not want to believe that the thing that they suspect is happening, the thing that they wish wasn't happening, the event or circumstance or experience that they pray to God is not actually happening, is happening. That's the first most valuable step a person can take, to really understand and mind their surroundings, to accept that the situation that they're in, even if it's the worst case, most horrible, most tragic situation that they could possibly imagine, the first most important step is to actually accept and start to believe that what is happening is in fact what is really happening. And this sounds counterintuitive, where a person accepts that the worst thing is happening to them. But in my experience, both professional and personal, when a person does this, when a person actually comes to the bottom of themselves, when a person comes to the end of themselves and accepts that the thing that they wish wasn't happening actually is happening, that's the beginning of freedom for that person. Because it's only after you've minded your surroundings that you've come to accept that what you think is happening, what you wish wasn't happening, really is happening. Then it begins to actually liberate you and free you to make the decisions that you need to make, instead of the decisions that you just want to make, the decisions that you wish you could make. In order to be able to make the best decisions that you can, you have to be able to mind your surroundings, because then you're making decisions on the basis of reality that actually exists, instead of the reality that exists in your head. Because up until you've minded your surroundings and accepted the situation that you're in, you're living in a fantasy land. You're making decisions that are not based on reality, and the longer you carry on denying the reality that you're in, the harder it becomes to actually figure out a way to survive it, to go through it, and in the long term have the hope of actually being able to thrive out of it, learn from it, and for it to become a testimony for other people who, for a fact, are going to go through, if not the exact same situation that you're going through right now, at least something very similar. So this is the importance of minding your surroundings. It starts with accepting it. And I can't tell you how many times when a client actually accepts it, it's a sense of relief that finally I can actually admit that what I think is happening is happening. Now I can actually turn to the facts. Even if they're horrible facts, I can turn to the facts and actually start making decisions based on reality itself. So this is the importance of minding your surroundings. And it isn't just about minding your physical surroundings. It's about minding your temporal surroundings, your chronological surroundings. This is about understanding not just where you are, but when you are, right? So I could think of an example of a person that I've been seeing who has a very difficult relationship with their family, with their parents specifically. And they are looking forward to a time where they can be out of the house, living the kind of life that they want to live, and being able to feel like they're being validated for the person that they really are, as compared to the kind of person that their parents would like them to be. And there's a whole long history with their family. And in talking to them, what it is that I've been saying to them, what the thing that I've been trying to make them realize is they have to mind their surroundings. As much as they might be fighting with their parents, as much as they don't want to be in the situation that they're in, still living at home, still relying on their parents, still having to put up with them, it's important to mind their surroundings. The fact of the matter is you are living in your parents' house and you are eating their food, and the clothes that you're wearing, they bought for you. You're sleeping in their bed, drinking their water. And it's important for you to understand that, because as much as you are having conflict with your parents, as much as you might find them to be frustrating and invalidating or whatever it is, it's important for you to mind your surroundings. So the idea is, how can I go through the situation in as healthy a manner as possible? And if that means I have to cultivate as stable as possible a relationship with my parents, then let me do that. But I'm doing that for a reason, so that I can get through this time in my life and move towards the kind of future that I really want to have. So I have to mind my surroundings, but I also have to mind when I am. Because up until I'm able to support myself, up until I'm able to be financially, materially independent, I rely on these people. So I need them to like me just enough so that I can get out of their lives, I can get out of their hair. So you have to take care of where you are and when you are in the time of your life, right? And after you take cognizance of that situation, then you can start making decisions that can actually help you to become better. And this is the thing. The thing that people struggle with when they're going through hell is that they have to accept the fact that perhaps they have to make decisions that they've never conceived of. Decisions that they would never think were possible for them to have to make in order to survive, you know. So for myself, for example, last year I went through probably the most tragic, most difficult year of my life. To cut it very short, my father passed away. I went through a traumatic incident in an armed robbery, and that had a negative effect on my mental health, to the point where there were suicide attempts involved. And so what it is that I had to do was to mind my surroundings and mind when I am in my life, right? I had to really take responsibility for the fact that if I'm gonna survive this, I have to actually accept that it's happening. And I have to get out of my own head and allow myself to be treated as a patient. I may be a psychologist, and I may have the skills and the capacity to help myself, but only to a certain extent. At the end of the day, I'm still a human, just like everyone else. And just like everyone else, when I'm sick, I need help. If my body was sick, I would go to a doctor because I'm not trained to be a doctor. And this is another thing when I've seen doctors as clients. It's important for them to get out of that mentality of treating yourself. It's important to accept the fact that I have to be a patient. I have to listen to my psychologist. I have to listen to my psychiatrist. I have to make the changes in my life that are going to help me to cultivate and maintain good mental health and functioning, right? So this has to do with issues of lifestyle, habits that I have to take on, exercise, eating well, socializing, connecting, being vulnerable, being open, communicating well, going to my therapy sessions, taking my medications as instructed, making sure that I'm keeping up to date, all of these kinds of things. I have to mind my surroundings and accept my situation and be humble, you know, and get out of my own way. And so what it is that I would urge you to do through whatever kind of situation that you might be facing, if you're going to stand a chance of being actually able to survive it, you have to mind your surroundings. You have to accept where you are in your life. You have to accept when you are in your life. And it's only then that you can start making decisions that are actually going to help you to survive, that are actually going to help you to be able to get through it in as healthy a way as possible. And some of those decisions up until that point in your life may have been inconceivable, things that you knew that you could never do. But in order to survive, sometimes you have to do the impossible. I'm thinking about Japan at the end of the Second World War. By the time the bombs had both gone off, and Japan was at a point where they realized that they had to surrender, the emperor, in a speech over the radio to his people, told them that they have to endure the unendurable. And sometimes in your life, you have to endure the unendurable. And just like Imperial Japan at the end of the Second World War, Japan finally had to accept that the war was lost. The war was lost. It was futile to keep putting up resistance. And in fact, if they were going to continue to fight and put up resistance, it isn't just cities that was going to be wiped out, but the very Japanese people themselves were going to be drawn into a conflict where more and more unnecessary deaths were going to happen in order to achieve nothing. And so the leadership of Japan had to be beaten into submission for them to realize that continuing to fight is not going to achieve anything. They had to mind their surroundings and accept the facts of where their nation had come to. And in order to survive that, they had to open themselves up to realities that they could never accept before. They had to accept the fact that they're going to be conquered, they're going to be occupied, and if they're going to survive, they have to endure the unendurable. And that's not about giving up. It's about realizing that if I'm going to have a future, I have to get through this. If I'm going to have the future, I have to survive this. Right? So sometimes you have to endure the unendurable and enter into that new reality in your life, enter into that new phase of your life. So that if you're going to have a future, you have to go through hell. If you're going to get to heaven, you have to get through hell. So I would urge you today, mind your surroundings. You have to understand where you are in your life. You have to understand when you are in your life so that you can make decisions that are based in reality, instead of the fantasy that you're still living in your head. Instead of denying where you are and when you are, accept it and then make decisions that are going to help you to survive. It frees you up to do things that you never thought you could do. It's humbling. It requires vulnerability and transparency and openness, but ultimately it's freedom. It's freedom. So that's what I have to you today. I hope I made sense. I hope I was logical. Take what you will from it. If you've gotten to this part of the video and you feel like it was helpful, it was useful, then I would ask you to comment in the video, to subscribe to the channel, to like the video. It helps the YouTube algorithm to push me to the top. And then I will see you next time. Thank you for listening to these morning thoughts. I hope you have a great day in the future. Goodbye.